Good morning, and welcome to the Folsom Street Fair. I mean, let's be honest. I know that you all had that moment of indecision this morning, a Wider Brunch, the Folsom Street Fair. It's a tough choice. But there is something that we can learn from the Folsom Street Fair. What Folsom teaches us is that the problem with the BDS movement is that they left off the M. BDS divides us, but BDSM, that's thousands of people out in the street having a great party. It's so wonderful to see all of you here, and we're so proud to be honoring Rabbi Sidney Mintz, Roberta Kaplan, and our dear friends from Israel, Chen Arieli and Imri Kalman. I want to mention at the outset that Roberta Kaplan will be joining us today by video. This was a very last-minute change, and she will explain herself what is keeping her away. It's been a great year for a Wider Bridge. As you saw in that little video clip we just watched, we brought some amazing guests from Israel to the US this year. Leaders of Kala, the new organization for Ethiopian Israeli LGBT people. A delegation of teen transgender leaders from a great organization called Mavarim. And Katamon, a remarkable dance company from Jerusalem, working to use their art to make that city a more pluralistic and creative environment. We aim to give voice to all of the colors and textures of the beautiful fabric that is LGBT life in Israel. But speaking of BDS, it was also a year in which our voice was momentarily silenced, when our program at Creating Change with the leaders of Jerusalem Open House was shut down by protesters. You'll hear more about that later in the program, but what I want to say right now is that it was truly only a momentary silence. The incident reverberated around the country, and it translated into an outpouring of love and support for our work. So many of you who are here today responded. So many of you responded with care and concern and support, and we are very grateful. And then we rediscovered our voice in a whole new way. The incident prompted us to rethink how we speak about our story and why we do this work. You know, there's a new phenomenon sweeping across the country, the six-word story, or the six-word memoir. The thought that a good idea could be expressed with power and clarity in exactly 6 words. Why take 140 characters if you can get the job done with 6? And honestly, Jews invented the 6-word story. The oldest and most profound 6-word story is ours. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, a 6-word story that changed the world. And Jews are masters of the 6-word story today. One of my favorites is from comedian Larry David, who sums up his life and regret this way: I should have had the chicken. This year we found our own 6-word story, one that explains why we do our work more clearly and precisely than we have done before. Those 6 words were just on the screen, they're on the programs in front of you, they're on your name tags. Equality in Israel, equality for Israel. Equality in Israel. We want the state of Israel that we care so deeply about to be a place that is welcoming to LGBT people and to all people who might feel as if they are the other in some way. And we want to support all of the activists and artists and thought leaders who are working in Israel to make this happen. Equality for Israel. We want Israel and its LGBT community to be treated fairly and with respect in the global LGBT community and among the community of nations. We stand for engagement, understanding, and collaboration, not for boycott, exclusion, or delegitimization. Equality in Israel, equality for Israel, that is our dual mission. It is what inspires us to move forward every day, and it's why we are gathered here today. Before I introduce our host, I want to mention a few people who are here with us. Please hold your applause. From the State of Israel, Deputy Consul General of the Pacific Northwest, Ravit Ber. From the Consulate of the State of Mexico, Luis Ilyana and Wilma Gindoy. Our honorary co-chair, Al Baum. I want to recognize the leaders of two of the major funders and supporters of our work, from the Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund, CEO Danny Grossman, and from the Koret Foundation, Executive Director Jeff Farber. And I want to thank all of the sponsors who are here today and all of the board members of A Wider Bridge that are here, Alan Schwartz, Bruce Maxwell, Ron Lozelle, Vincent Jones, and most especially the staff of A Wider Bridge, especially Ty Gregory. Nothing good at A Wider Bridge, nothing good happens at A Wider Bridge without Ty. We have visiting with us from Southern California, Nicole Murray Ramirez, the Empress and Queen Mother of the International Imperial Court System, and Michael Sunduk, CEO of the San Diego Jewish Federation. And we want to acknowledge several elected officials who are here. Candidate for the State Senate of California, San Francisco Supervisor Scott Wiener. Candidate for the State Assembly of Arizona, School Board Member Daniel Hernandez. And member of the College Board, Raphael Mandelman. And representing State Senator Mark, thank you. And representing State Senator Mark Leno, Bob Hartnagel is here, and Bob is going to be joining us on our trip to Israel in November. And just prior to this event, the Office of Senator Leno presented us with a beautiful proclamation in honor of A Wider Bridge. I also want to acknowledge someone who is not here this morning, Jerry Rosenstein, who, of blessed memory, who passed away at the beginning of 2016, who was one of the great icons of the Jewish and LGBT communities here in San Francisco and a great friend and supporter of A Wider Bridge. And now a few words about our host, Vincent Jones, a dear friend, a great leader, and a board member of A Wider Bridge. Just a few months ago, Vincent was in a serious car crash that almost cost him his life. When I saw the photos of him in the hospital with casts on his arms and legs, and when I read about the surgeries that would be required, I did not expect Vincent to be here today. But in the last few months, he has taught us a great deal about resilience, perseverance, and commitment. So it is my great honor to introduce our host for today's brunch, back for a second appearance, Vincent Jones. And without further ado, live from San Francisco, it's A Wider Brunch.
Hold on a second, I have to get situated a little bit here. Hold on. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? Okay, that's better, that's better. So I'm very excited to be back here for several reasons. One, I got to wear these shoes that I love so much. Aren't they cute? No. But also because, as Arthur mentioned, I was in an accident a few months ago, and it was, when you see a car coming at you, you think you're gonna not have another moment. And I had several moments afterwards where I was pulled out of the car, blood was coming from my head, my arm was broken in several places, my leg was broken in several places, this leg. And so 3 surgeries later, 2 months homebound, and only about a week and a half ago did I start walking without a wheelchair or a crutch. But I was determined to be here today. Because A Wider Bridge means that much to me. And so because of all of that determination, I think today we need to be more of a celebration. We need to celebrate today. Can we all do that? Yeah. So kind of in the world, there's a lot of crazy happening in the world. Donald Trump. But in this room, there is going to be no crazy, at least no bad crazy, only good crazy. And I have an idea to kind of help with the celebratory mood. How many of you guys have played a drinking game before? By show of hands. All right, that's good. So like this is going to be easier than most drinking games you played in college or even last night. So whenever you hear the word community, What word is it? What do you do? Okay, yes, there you go. So that's the game. Are you guys in? Okay. And if you need refills, you can ask our wonderful servers to fill you up. But while I'm waiting on my drink, let me share a little bit more about why I was really passionate about being here. Oh, can I have a drink too, please? Somebody? In 2014, oh, thank you. Ah, Rabbi Mensch, you're so much. Thank you. In 2014, I went on a Wider Brunch mission, and I really joined this community. Testing you. No, I didn't tell you what to drink. You can drink whatever you like to drink, but drink something. And I really joined this amazing group of people from around the world, where I met people from in Israel, in the US. I got to learn a lot more about life in Israel, not just what you see on TV or hear in the news, but I got to really see it for myself. And I always think about this one moment when I was walking down the boardwalk in Tel Aviv to the area, I forget what it's called. It used to be a train station, but now it's like a lot of stores and restaurants and kind of little shops. And there's this family, a mother and a father and a little kid, and they're walking like hand in hand the entire time for several blocks. And so to me, when I think of Israel, I think of family. And even on the plane rides, I've been in Israel now for 3 times. Each trip, there are so many kids on the plane. And so and a Wider Brunch has helped me to really think of Israel as family and think of it as a place with a lot of contours, a lot of complexity, a lot of joy, and a place that needs to be supported, for equality in Israel and equality for Israel. But before we get started with the show, I also want to talk about what's different this year. Because I was here last year. Who was here last year? Who else was here last year? Show of hands. I like that. Who's new this year? I mean, who, okay. Now, who doesn't know anybody at all here? Who only knows one person here? Okay, over here, we have 2 people over here at table 9. Now, before we finish, I want you to get to know them because you're all part of our community. Okay. And you also are a part of the show this year. This year we have a co-host, and you all are the co-hosts. So are you guys down for that job? It's very easy. There are 3 rules. The first rule is you have to participate. So, I grew up Baptist. In the Baptist church, we are very loud. There's a lot of call and response. When people like what the pastor is saying, they say, "That's right, amen, testify, hallelujah." When they like the song, they start singing along. They may pass out, but here today, when you're feeling what somebody is saying, or you are enjoying what's going on, we want you to hear it. We want you to hear it, to share your emotion. It's a celebration. Don't just be quiet. Okay, that's the first rule. Second rule: when every guest comes out, we need you all to welcome them. And I love shalom. I love saying shalom. And shalom. So when the guests come out together, we'll all give them a nice big shalom. So can we test it? Can we test it? Okay, ready? So for our first guest today, we have straight from Washington, D.C., Lady Gaga. Great, there you go. Okay, and the third rule before we really get started is to kind of go with this idea of community. I would love for people to so something that we used to do in my church is somebody you don't know, just say hello, my name is so-and-so, shake their hand, and then we'll get started, okay? Can you guys do that? So literally, just shake somebody's hand that you don't know already. We're enlarging the community, we're building the bridge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All righty, now let's start coming back together. Co-hosts, come back together. I like table number 8 over here. Table number 8 is the active table. Or number 6, I mean, over there. Okay, co-hosts, come back together. So now you got a taste of what a Wider Bridge does to build a community. And I want to show it a little bit. Everyone, can you hear me? Hello, hello. Sorry about that. So you got a taste of what a Wider Bridge does to really build bridges, pun intended. But I want to show you a little bit in a little video.
I started a Wider Bridge because I believe Israel is the most important project of the Jewish people.
A Wider Bridge engages in Israel advocacy that is personal rather than political. The 3 major pillars of our work revolve around personal interaction and experience.
It's connecting between communities, and the best way to connect is coming to Israel, seeing the situation as it is, analyzing it, creating processes, creating dialogues, creating thoughts.
We take LGBT leaders on 10-day missions to Israel so they can see firsthand what LGBT life is like there.
A Wider Bridge work with a lot of platforms. They make it in delegations between Israel to United States and United States to Israel.
Our work is about giving people an opportunity to fall in love with Israel, to see the beauty of the country, to see that there are people in Israel that they really care about.
I think it was insightful also for transgender people to meet the transgender community here in Israel, to hear about how our life is here in Israel, and also for people who are not transgender to learn a bit more about transgender issues in general.
What you get from being a part of this trip is an opportunity to relate to people that are different from you, who you have so much in common with, but who can teach you new things about the world.
Wider Bridge has helped me to come and see things for myself and to come and see that the people here are real and to understand what they are facing or what they are going through.
We've learned about the history of the country, we've learned about the political situation here, and also the climate for LGBT community here. And it's been a phenomenal trip. I'm going to take so much of what I've learned back home.
I love the fact that the Wider Bridge is trying to explore equality and love abroad and using Israel as a hub to do that. And I wanted to be connected to that.
This mix of ancient culture and modern striving has been a fascinating experience. I think I found a home, and that's a very exciting feeling.
I just love being able to be open with these people and relax and not feel like I have to put on a front or hide.
I am thrilled to be here on this wonderful tour with the Wider Bridge. It's enlightening, it's educational.
There was no judgment. It didn't matter gay, straight, bi, trans, anything. We were just all together as family, as friends. It was just really beautiful to be a part of that.
I really fell in love with the people, the land, the history.
For most trip participants, these trips are described as transformative experiences, and we don't want that to end at Ben Gurion Airport on the way home.
I think that when a Wider Bridge brings somebody like me to the US, enables me to talk to these people and enables them to hear me, I think that there's a connection.
When I went there, I felt like I was exposed to so much LGBT activism I could learn from and also teach.
It was an opportunity to meet people and activists from the LGBT community, the Jewish LGBT community that I wouldn't have met otherwise, and that was very wonderful.
We share a common desire to lead full, whole, authentic lives.
We also bring elected officials and civic leaders, like out members of Knesset, to talk about their life in the parliament. And we bring artists and musicians to demonstrate their work and talk about their personal lives as LGBT Israelis.
Wider Bridge spreads knowledge about Israel and about LGBT life in Israel. Wider Bridge makes this information available, and I'm very happy to contribute as much as I can and be part of it.
The last major component of our work is our online magazine platform at widerbridge.org. Our tens of thousands of readers from North America, Israel, and all around the world stay connected to Israel and its LGBT community.
The many platforms of a Wider Bridge, the magazine and the tours and the people coming to visit actually strengthens all the communities.
As we bring North Americans and Israelis together, people see that there is no contradiction between progressive values and having a deep and meaningful relationship with Israel.
What began as a San Francisco-based effort in 2010 has grown into an international organization, moving from conversation to connection to today a true movement, a movement of LGBT people choosing to engage meaningfully with the state of Israel and its LGBT citizens.
I like that video. That was a good video. Who did that video, Arthur? I like that. Good job, good job. Give it up again for the video. And I love seeing a lot of familiar faces in there. I even saw mine. I remember that was breakfast after a very long night in Tel Aviv. And I do miss Tel Aviv, I must say. But we have straight from Tel Aviv, our first guest. Hen Arieli and Imri Kalman. They're the co-chairs of the Aguda, Israel's LGBT task force. Under Hen and Imri's leadership, the Aguda has become a strong political force in bringing LGBT issues into the Israeli Knesset and the judiciary, and serves as an umbrella organization working to nurture many other key organizations and projects in the community. The Aguda was a Wider Bridge's Israeli partner in hosting the first ever LGBT leadership conference to Tel Aviv last year, attended by more than 150 leaders from 16 countries. And you saw a bunch of them in that video, and I see a few of them in this room through the glare of the light. But if that isn't enough, Hen has had a distinguished career as a senior staff member of the Knesset and as a leading feminist figure in the community in Israel. Imri is also renowned in his own right. He has several businesses in the LGBT community, including the bar Spagat. How many of you guys have been there to Spagat? And it's a fabulous place, not just for people who are LGBT, but also folks who are allies and just want to be part of a fun evening. So without further ado, let's give a warm shalom to Hen and Imri. Come on out. Not yet, not yet. Hello. Both sides. Both sides. Yeah. I wanted, so backstage during the opening, Hen and I were dancing. And I kind of want to keep dancing, but we have some stuff to talk about. So let's just jump right in. So you guys, before you got here to San Francisco, you guys have been doing a little bit of a tour of California, yeah?
That's true.
Where have you been so far?
San Diego and Palm Springs, and we were driving the car to Vegas and also to see the Death Valley, which was amazing, and we came here. And after that, we have Chicago and DC and New York.
Ah.
Yeah.
And so let's just say, before we get to more serious things, what has been the most interesting thing you've seen so far on the trip?
I think being here a few weeks before the elections is like, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I worked at the Knesset, so this tension is like, and you're always like talking about conspiracies, and we loved it.
Yeah, I love it.
But we drove the country, so we understand a lot about America and that time now. So I think it was the most surprising topic that we had in the past week.
We'll come back after November. It will definitely be interesting whatever happens. Yeah. But before we get started, let's say hello to people who are watching us on live stream. Hello, people in Israel and Chicago and Rhode Island. So let's jump right in. So you're both co-chairs of the Aguda, which means you both work day and night as volunteers. And you may not know that here in the U.S., you would get paid.
When are we moving?
So you obviously have some passion for the work. Maybe can you share a little bit what makes you passionate about the work? Like what in your life story makes you really motivated to do what you're doing? Start with you, Hen.
I think it's actually in our DNA. We're change makers. It really grows with our different identities. When I was in high school, I wanted counsel, and afterwards I was activist in the feminist arena and the left-wing arena, and I can't help myself. We can't help it. We see something, we think it could be better, so we get up and do it better. We put our hands into the dirt and work. And I think it's really based deep in our genes and in our blood. So that's my answer for that question.
And you, Imri?
I agree. I think also just like opening bars was the same for me, because I just like felt that I don't completely like agree, or I don't completely like what I see. So I'm not like looking at someone else to do the change, but maybe I can have part of it. And I think also coming to the Aguda and volunteering in the Aguda is part of having that decision that things can be better, can be done better, and maybe we can help it, just like push it a little bit to the right direction.
I have a quick question for you on that. So here in the U.S., bars have played pretty prominently in our movement for civil rights. You know, there were the Stonewall rebellions. There were in New York. There was the Black Cat Rebellion and riots in L.A. Do you guys have similar situations in Israel where there were incidents in bars that helped to really ignite the movement for equality in Israel?
I don't know if we had incidents, but I think that we are trying to make the activists, I call them activists, just like, you know, the party producers. But I think we really see them as activists that have a big responsibility about like influencing the community, because many times in gay communities, the bars and the parties are just like the most maybe important or basic agent for becoming part of the community, because that's the first place a gay, you know, a young gay guy or a lesbian goes just like to look for themselves, for their identities. And they are being designed also as what it is to be gay, where they go there, when they go there. So I think they have an important role to play. And we just like had this last summer, a big story with like the Treasury Office in Israel. And we did it completely, just like the whole story. We did it together with nightlife producers that were part of the protest against the government decision to spend 11 million shekels on a campaign, whether to spend it on like the LGBT organization and our movement. So it was really combined. We did together, and I think this is part of our success also.
Oh, great. Yeah. Let's make sure everybody understands what happened. So this summer, the government was going to spend $11 million on a campaign to get people to come to Tel Aviv. The tourism industry come to Tel Aviv for Pride. But the community came together to say, no, invest it in us, so we can be able to expand equality in Israel.
Basically what happened, that we reclaimed the parade back to the hands of the community. It was really an historical step, because the parade in Tel Aviv is one of the biggest parades in the world. And what the tourism ministry did was just use that our work for more than 4 decades, that it is fabulous and good to be LGBT in Israel, but it's our work and it's our parade, and no one can take it away from us. So this declaration that we said to the government, we'll cancel the parade because it's ours to be held in the first place. So I think this is the most important turning point that the community in Israel is doing right now, reclaiming the field back to our hands.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's quite historical to have a situation where you threat to cancel the parade to gain like more process in the movement. That's quite a story.
And so the Aguda was formed 41 years ago, correct? So what is it? What do you do? How are you formed? What's one of the biggest things that you've been proudest of in that 41-year history? How about Hen?
First of all, the Aguda is one of the pioneer organizations that's dealing with human rights in Israel. Israel is a young country, and to know that you have an LGBT organization for 41 years, it's really amazing to realize that. Everything that's going on in the LGBT arena started at the Aguda. We were first there, and I think after 4 decades, after we're celebrating 40 years, Imri and I were asking ourselves, what's next? What is the next step of the LGBT community in Israel, and what is the next step of, what is the next responsibility of the Aguda? Everyone, all our children left home and become independent organizations and working amazingly in the field. And what is our role as the Aguda, as the umbrella organization? And we really, like us being change makers from our DNA, we went outside and met tons of people and asked them, what do you need? What do you need for the Aguda to be? What do you need for us to represent you? What do you think about us? What do you want? And we conclude that our mission is to be that, to be the umbrella organization, to build platforms for LGBT individuals and organizations to thrive and to work as better as they can with our help.
So,
yeah, I think that also we understood that we cannot like think that it's obvious that the LGBT will be a community. I think you have to drink now.
Yes.
I think that's just like, it's not just like being a community because we are LGBT.
Right.
We have to find a reason, just like what are the values that makes us a community? What are the real values and reasons for people around the country to feel that they are part of the community? And I think that this is just like where both of those were our first goals when we got in the job like 2 years ago, and this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. What is a community, actually? Every one of us have different meaning for the word community. And every single one of us drink, charge that word with another meaning. I have several communities that my heart belongs to, so, and the next community. I'll stop.
You're saying, yeah. So you're also an umbrella organization, as you mentioned. Can you say more about some of the groups that are part of that umbrella and how that works?
Yeah, like there are two kind of ways to be part of the umbrella organization. The first one is the new ones, the small ones, that the Aguda is now nurturing to become independent and to become just like in a phase where they can stand for themselves. And Kala is part of it now, and also the LGBT tech, which is just like the gathering of high-tech gay people in Israel, and also elderly women, Beshela, which is part of the Aguda now, and also the soldiers, the gay soldiers that just like joined the Aguda a few days ago to be part of that program of nurturing new groups to become independent. And the other side is those kids that left home that Chen was speaking about, the big organizations around Israel, the local ones in Beersheba, in Haifa, in Jerusalem, and the national ones like Igi and Choshen, that now we're just like inventing a new reality where we see ourselves as one organization. We are one organization which is called the gay community. And the gay community is the organization, and we're not like different organs that are just like in different roles, but we are organs of one body. And I think that this is just like the new phase that we're dealing with, and it's very, very interesting, and it's very sensitive, and it's a lot about personal relations, and about honesty and friendship, and really trusting your partners to work together very closely. Yeah.
I have to add to that. That we run nothing about us without us policy. We're not saying we can represent elderly lesbians with their struggles and needs without them sitting with us to the same table, and as the same as LGBT Ethiopian community, etc., etc. And we we don't decide to represent a community. It's a mutual decision that we are representing the community. And what made it successful through the Treasury Ministry was exactly that we had the back of all the Israeli community. We sat there at a press conference. All the Israeli media is in front of us. We were shaking. And we said, the Israeli community says no. And that sentence will really charge with the power we got from all our friends. And this is the major difference, and we're working so hard to get that and to do that. So
I think our community here can learn a lot of lessons from that as we're trying to, in this post-marriage movement or moment, we're talking about how do we really bridge all these parts of the LGBT community in the US, but we haven't gotten there yet. But I think with the Wider Bridge's help, we'll learn more from both of you and your community, other activists to do that better. I have a question about, so let's say you guys, okay, so I'm anointing you queen and king, or king and queen, however you like it to be.
Two queens, it's good.
Two queens
or just queen and queen, just queen and queen of, of LGBT Israel. And so in 10 years, what do you want to happen?
Oh, wow, we love that question.
That's my favorite.
We really believe that the LGBT community in Israel and around the world have a special secret mission, especially in Israel. We believe that the LGBT community can be a gate community to solve much deeper problems that the Israeli society in general. And this is our vision, and we work by it. And we're really careful by letting everyone know about it, because it's like a big vision and a big agenda. But the Israeli LGBT community is a microcosmos of the Israeli society. There's LGBT everywhere. We have heretical LGBTs, we have Ethiopian LGBTs, we have Arab LGBTs, we have, all of us are everywhere. And if we're succeed in our mission to have a mutual good discussion and a mutual good plan ahead and goals, we cracked something that can be motivated to solve something much deeper in the Israeli society in general. So,
I feel that like many times for me as a young gay guy, I got into the community, I'm sorry, and it felt like a little bit like a bubble. You know, that we just like created a very pink and fabulous bubble, and we're just like now dealing with making this bubble, you know, arranged and just like clean and stuff, and everything will be great. But after finishing that and having just like maybe even one day just like to be completely equal, we will have to look outside of the bubble. And then, what do we see in Israel? Like, if we have equality for LGBT people, in our community, we will have members that are not equal because they are Arab, or Ethiopian, or women. So what did we do? We made them equal, just like being LGBT, but they're not equal in other measures. And this is a reality we cannot accept. And that's the reason I think that we are looking now, 10 years, just like to make those 10 years not only equal for LGBT people, but to change the Israeli society. And maybe this is our mission, our secret mission, to take responsibility not only of our own lives and our own future, but the future of our friends and families that are not gay and should also like be part of this.
It's not just what we demand and what we need, it's what we give back to the Israeli society. And we have a lot to give back, and we intend to do that. So in 10 years from now, we'll sit here again, and we'll tell you all about it.
Okay, I'll be here. Yes. And how has, Henry, you've been to the U.S., I think, 3 times, is that correct? And Imre, you've been here, this is your first time, your second time here, correct?
My second time.
And both with, all with the Wider Bridge, correct? Or for you, but with the Wider Bridge. How has your interaction with the Wider Bridge helped in this work towards this longer vision?
I think Wider Bridge is a light that is a partner for us at the other side of the world that really build that bridge and really make it wider, because it all starts with friendship. And if you profound that friendship, and if you work on that friendship and that relationship, we are most excited to be partnered and friends with Wider Bridge, and we think that they have a really unique and significant role in the life of LGBTs in Israel, and bringing our voices here to the North America. And it could have been done without Wider Bridge, and I think it's a breakthrough organization that is really leading the way and leading the light towards our beliefs that we just talked about, changing the community through the LGBT eyes, changing Israel through the LGBT bridge. Let's build a wider bridge. So we're really excited to be here, and we're really excited towards our ongoing partnership with Wider Bridge, and we cannot be more expect to what years to come to work together.
And so I want to thank you guys for all you're doing. I love your amazing vision. But before you go, I want to call up the Executive Director of Wider Bridge, Arthur Slepian, who wants to say a few words.
Ben, Emery, would you join me here? It's such a pleasure to be able to honor the two of you today, and we are so proud to be able to call both of you our partners and our friends, and we really share the vision that you have for Israeli society, that LGBT people can really be a driving force for so much positive change. In the 2 years since you became the chairs of the Aguda, you have led a great change in Israel's LGBT community. It's a change that's characterized by leadership, partnership, integrity, and transparency. And it's a change that has strengthened your community and has enabled it to act with greater confidence and resolve and unity. And people are paying attention. Your community has noticed it, your government has noticed it, and your friends here in the US have noticed it as well. And the partnership that you have forged with each other is a great model for others to learn from. And it's strengthening the relationship between our two organizations, the Aguda and the Wider Bridge. We have done some outstanding things together these past 2 years, including the 40 Years of Pride Conference in Israel. And I know that bigger things are in store for us as we build an even stronger partnership that will help to guide our communities forward. So it's a great pleasure to present you with this award. And it says, for your partnership, well, that people can read what it says.
Does it say the word community?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Arthur.
We're going to go down the stage and everything.
Yes.
So our next guest comes from a little bit further away, all the way about 8 blocks down the street, Rabbi Cindy Mintz. Cindy Mintz. She has been a Okay, look at this. Hey. Now what is this?
It's a community horn.
For me to blow or something?
You can't blow this horn.
So let me say a little bit more about our wonderful rabbi. Many of you all know her already, but she is a champion of social justice, LGBT rights, Israel, and Jewish peoplehood since she arrived at Congregation Emmanuel after her Hebrew Union College ordination in 1997. For those here that know her, you know that she is beloved both within and far beyond the walls of Emmanuel. She even started a late Shabbat for young adults, which has rejuvenated Jewish life here in San Francisco. I'll come next time I'm in town on a Friday.
Second Friday,
yeah,
you're all invited.
There we go. Sydney currently serves on the National Board of Bina Arc, a Jewish Partnership for Justice, and as a rabbinic scholar for the American Jewish World Service. She is a graduate of Bina Arc's Say-Life Leadership Program and is a member of the U.S. State Department's Working Group on Religion and Social Justice. because she doesn't have enough to do. She even led the team Emmanuel in the 8th Life Cycle ride from San Francisco to LA, and is an avid open ocean swimmer. So ladies and gentlemen, please give another warm welcome and warm shalom Rabbi Sydney Mintz. Yeah. So Sydney, tell us why you brought this on stage with you today.
I brought the shofar because it's traditional on Elul, every single day of the month that precedes Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, to blow the shofar to awaken our spirits. Gotcha. So I thought I'd give a little tekiah to start us off.
Let's do it.
So, all right, you guys ready?
Yeah. Is that okay?
So you do know how you can tell if it's a woman's shofar, not a man's shofar. You know what it is? It's the lipstick on the end of the shofar. So that's how they came up with the term lipstick lesbian, was for the shofar. So give me a tekiah.
Tekiah. So my producers gave me notes about you, and they told me about your love of swimming. I just flashed back to a moment when I was frightened when I learned how to scuba dive, and they told me, Vincent, you have to swim 100 meters from here to there and back. And I was like, so where are you going to be? I said, right here. I said, what if I drown? We'll come get you. I said, what if I drown fast? We'll come get you fast. But you choose to do this, at least for charity, from Alcatraz to San Francisco.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Say more about that.
You don't have to be that great of a swimmer to swim from Alcatraz. It's a myth.
Oh.
I mean, unless you were actually in prison on Alcatraz, then that was not the case for me before rabbinical school. But I've done the Alcatraz Swim for Sight several years in a row, and I also like to do it kind of as a spiritual end to the holidays. And a lot of people ask, are you scared of the currents? Are you scared of sharks? And so I started an organization called JAWS, which is Jews Against White Sharks, and they haven't bothered us since in the swim. So come along.
Yeah. And so I also understand, on a more serious note, I understand that there haven't been many women rabbis throughout history, and there definitely haven't been many out lesbian rabbis until more recently. So what has that experience been like for you?
The experience has been, obviously, I was born in the 1990s.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
Oh my God, me too.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun being. It was not that easy to be an out kid in the 1960s growing up in Chicago, and I was called a tomboy back then, which was okay and appropriate. But I guess I was kind of in between kind of a kid, growing up trans, but I didn't know I was, or gay. I didn't know it. So it wasn't that easy of a transition. I felt like there were people who came before me who eased that transition into the rabbinate, because I knew from a very young age I wanted to be a rabbi and drink mimosas on Sunday at the JCC. Yeah. And I do have to say, it's a beautiful Jewish community, a gay community, a women's community, and you have to give it up to the gays, because the Jews are just figuring out we should come for brunch instead of every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night go out to the Fairmont all night for events. So I want to thank Wider Brunch for coming up with the gay Jewish brunch. It's like a shehechianu to Arthur Slepian. But I was definitely at the tail end of the first generation of LGBT rabbis. And I'm indebted to those people who came before me who made it a little bit easier for me to become a rabbi when I was already out of the closet.
And how has being a woman rabbi informed your rabbiness? Is that a word?
My rabbiness. No, that sounds like your highness. We're not going to go there. So being a woman and being a lesbian, I think, has given me a much greater empathy in some regards, in terms of I grew up with white privilege, but I definitely didn't grow up with white male privilege. And so being a woman and being a lesbian has given me a degree of compassion, and also really inspired me and ignited me to work for the women's community, to work for girls' education, to ally myself with a wider bridge, and it's given me opportunities to be a leader as a rabbi for the LGBT community.
How about on the... Yes, that's right, yes. How about in the reverse? How has being a rabbi informed your activism in the LGBT movement?
I consider it a tremendous gift to be in 2016 and just have the ability, as you said. One day I was walking down the street with my yarmulke on, as I usually do, and somebody said, I didn't know they let ladies wear yarmulkes. And I said, yeah, for a really long time, women have been rabbis. And they said, well, how long is your history? I said, 4,000 years. And they didn't ordain women until 1973. So when I was a kid, I didn't know women could be rabbis. So I would say I feel blessed every single day to be able to have the opportunity to be a woman rabbi and to be a lesbian rabbi. But for the most part, I'm just a rabbi.
And so you're a rabbi who is passionate about many causes. Can you say more about some of those other causes you're really passionate about?
As you know, I was just in North Carolina, and I was helping to register voters because, as most of us know, there was some really bad legislation. And so I was talking to my partner Justine this morning about like what's on the forefront of my mind in terms of activism, just democracy.
Yes.
Just the gift of democracy in this country and the fact that so many people don't have the rights that belong to some of us, and they don't even know they deserve the rights that belong to some of us. So I am really activated right now, especially in the next month that we have, to get as many people to avail themselves of the opportunity that democracy provides for each one of us.
I love it. And on a lighter note, I mean, I think you're funny, but I'm told that you're a stand-up comedian in a former life, or maybe currently still.
Well, we're Jewish, so we only have one life, right? So it's just been a long life. Yeah.
But does that? So I must say, so every Jewish wedding I've been to have been hilarious. Is there something about rabbis and comedy?
Do we have an hour and a half to talk about like what would comedy be without the Jews? The Jewish trajectory from building a temple and having somebody come in and destroy it, and building another one and somebody comes in and destroys it. We have a lot of devastation and destruction, and we've been able to laugh at ourselves and to keep building. And so I think one of the resilient points in general in our history has really been to be able to laugh at ourselves and almost to take away the power from other people laughing at us, because we can laugh at ourselves better, smarter, and more.
I like that. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I want to move now to play a video that's not so funny. Earlier, Arthur referenced Creating Change, the largest annual gathering of LGBT activists every year. The program intended to connect, as Arthur said, members of the Jerusalem Open House community to U.S. leaders here at the conference. Now, the welcome wasn't what we thought. So let's show a video to get a better understanding of that.
Occupation has got to go. Go home. Occupation has got to go. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. No justice, no peace. Shut it down. Shut it down. Occupying Palestine is not peace. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Listen, we're gonna stay here and we're gonna challenge these Zionist racist motherfuckers.
So that was just about 90 seconds of what took place over a few hours. What's standing out from you most from this short video clip?
First of all, I'm from Chicago, and I thought we'd just give them pizza when they got there. And they had literally had this horrific experience. When I think about, first of all, let's just say that the work of a Wider Bridge in a world that is full of horrible news and terrible news lens on Israel almost daily, the work of a Wider Bridge is to shed a reality check and a reality lens on and lift up the work of the LGBT community here and in Israel, which is so important and vital and is part of our progressive Jewish values. So to see these Israelis who work every single day to promote LGBT equality welcomed in that way, which is just blatant anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, it was shocking and it was scary on the one hand, and on the other hand, given the way that we present ourselves sometimes, the way that Israel is perceived, it wasn't that shocking, because we have a really difficult time talking about Israel in the public forum. So I feel like the work that a Wider Bridge does every day is the work that encourages us to have dialogue. And I don't even, where is Chen right now? Chen, do you have a tattoo that's in Arabic? So I thought to myself as I was watching backstage, listen, we have an Israeli lesbian with an Arabic tattoo on the stage. And I think about the Palestinian gay activists that work with the Jewish activists, Israeli activists in the LGBT community that nobody ever hears about. And that's the work of a Wider Bridge. So I think what we need to do when we have receptions like this is we need to support organizations like a Wider Bridge to lift up the voices of dialogue more and more every single time we have an opportunity. And that's the work I want to do with a Wider Bridge.
Love it. And I remember when on my trip with the Wider Bridge, and we visited Jerusalem Open House, and learning that that initially the Palestinian equivalent was housed there, was incubated there, and while they separated, not for negative reasons, but for reasons that make sense, like they're still very much partners. And so like it's almost like the people who were in the audience or who were in the hallway had no idea that actually the people who they're protesting probably have a lot more in common with them than they realized, but they didn't want to have a conversation to really figure it out. They just wanted to protest based off what they heard on TV and the news.
Right. Well, we live in a country where if you ask most Americans, well, did you know that there are Arab members of Knesset? People would say, when? And you say, well, since the 1950s. That there's 17 members of Knesset now who are Arab Israeli. That people don't know what's really happening on the ground. So I'm elated to know that you've been there 3 times. I hope you go 4, 5, 6 times.
I'll be there in November. You
Fabulous.
should come with me.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You want a roommate?
Sure.
I'll bring the chauffeur.
Okay.
It's all right.
I won't. I have a joke in my head, but I won't say it.
You'll share it later.
So I know during that time I was on the phone and texting with both Ty and Arthur from LA, and I know you were talking to them as well. What is some of the, if you care to share, some of the advice that you gave then, or that you would even give now for possible in the future?
Well, one of the things that happened is after they left Chicago, Arthur brought them here to San Francisco, and we had a gathering of allies and LGBT leaders here in San Francisco. My heart felt broken to look at these young Israelis who, in fact, not only are LGBT, but are activists for Palestinian equality and for a solution that involves peaceful coexistence. And these are the people who were shouted down in Chicago. And so what we talked about is continuing to bring those people through the United States, as our leaders from the Aguda are doing. Like they're like on a tour that the WHO would envy at any point, going around the country. And they're so human. Right. And they're young and they're beautiful, and they're the future not only of Israel, but they're the future of, I hope, what our world is going to be. Enough of the bad news and more talking about the things that are really hard and very real. And so that's what we talked about. How can we get these voices out there, and not just speaking on a stage, but in the community, so that community by community, we can really make some incremental changes.
And so yes.
I also have to say, I hope this is the crowd that's going to be there for my Rosh Hashanah sermon, because it's so warm and welcoming.
That's how we do it at the Wider Bridge. So like this event, it also really is part of a growing trend where there seems to be a widening rift between the social justice movement and those of us who care deeply about the state of Israel. You're a leader in both worlds. You've been involved with Bina Arc. Bina Arc actually honored me last year for my work with criminal justice reform.
Right, in LA.
In LA, correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But what do you think we can do, all of us can do, to really heal that divide? How can we all just get along?
Again, I have till Sukkot to answer that question. First of all, you're a great ally. You're not Jewish, you're African American, you're gay, you have come through an incredible travail to be here physically, and so we're blessed to have you. Allies. Having allies who speak with us and for us are so important. And I have to say, as in my decades and decades of social activism, I'm kind of a newbie here. There's people in the room here. When I got to San Francisco 25 years ago, Rita Semmel, one of my beloved congregants who's here today, she had already 70 years ago started doing interfaith work here in the community. One of our beloved elders, Al Baum, who is here tonight, Al did a lot of incredible inroads on social justice in the LGBT community. So I think I am, standing on the shoulders of great heroes and heroines in our community. And what I think is very important is to pull the younger generation in and say, this is something that's yours. This is something you need to own. And not to be discouraged by the fact that there's so much polarization. As these kids are looking at a world where the next president of the United States is, we don't know. And that is a possibility. It's so scary for young people who have the ability to vote, or those who are going to have the ability to vote in 4 years. So I think bringing younger people in and getting them engaged earlier is the most important thing we can do. And
After the protests, you signed a letter that was penned by another honoree, Roberta Kaplan, and signed by more than 80 leaders across the country in defense of Wider Bridge's work in condemning the anti-Israel and anti-Semitic activity at the protests. Why did you sign the letter?
I signed the letter so that across the country I could add my voice and my signature to something that is very close to my heart. But I also signed the letter because I think it was the only thing I could do in reaction to what happened in Chicago, because I wasn't in from the very beginning. And what I wanted to say by signing that letter is we have to create the bridges before these things happen, before they become something that's really on fire, that's anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. We owe it to ourselves and to the future to get on the bridge way before and to let conference chairs or let conference committee know who's coming and why they're coming. And I think it's a great metaphor, the idea of a wider bridge, because it's not just the bridge from one place to another, it's who you meet along the way. It's who you meet on the bridge, and you're just fascinated when you meet the people who are really in coalition with you.
And so let's give another round of applause for our rock star rabbi.
Thank you, Vincent.
And and I want to invite our wonderful Arthur Slepian back on the stage with a gentleman you referenced, Mr. Al Baum. So Arthur and Al, please join us.
Trying to follow the person herself and introduce her is an impossible job, but it's one that I am enjoying because of who it is, the rock star rabbi. We've been around, I guess I could say it, we've come a long way, baby. We've been around for how many years? 25 years or more in the same city, watching one another and coming together from time to time. And when I first heard that there was a lesbian rabbi who had just been appointed at Emmanuel, I was astounded. It's hard to put ourselves back in that time, but that was a big deal. And now it's quite ordinary. Not that the people are ordinary, but the fact that there's a lesbian rabbi is ordinary. But in those days, it was not. And you, Sydney, have been there and made a lot of changes, been responsible for a lot of changes. You became famous as the funny rabbi, the humorous rabbi, and as the rabbi who could speak to the people younger than yourself. And there are more and more of those every year. Sorry, but from my vantage point, I can say it. And I've been impressed not only by that human thing, but also by your well-known devotion to social justice, which you were talking about along the way, and about Israel, too. These have been times when people, including rabbis, were often reluctant to speak out when they didn't agree with everything that the Israelis were doing, but you haven't, and I haven't to some extent, and we're in the same boat in that respect, and that makes me respect you. And I always thought you were a mensch, but now I know you're a good mensch politically. That's really all I have to say. You heard her speak for herself, and that's more important. But now Arthur wants to say a few words again.
Thank you, Al. I remember when I asked Al if he wanted to be one of the honorary co-chairs for this event and what role he would want to play, he said, I want to do this because of Sydney, and so I want to be a part of honoring her. So I really, really appreciate your words. Sydney, it's truly a joy to be up here with you and to be able to honor you with our Tzedek Award. And I remember back in 2010, when a Wider Bridge was more of an idea than an organization, you and I were on a panel together at the Roxy Theater about queer Zionism. And it became a little contentious. I mean, funny that a panel about queer Zionism would become a little contentious. But I remember that you spoke with such clarity about both your love for Israel and your concern for Israel. And I remember thinking that if I'm going to put myself in the business of speaking to LGBT people about Israel, and if I'm inviting them into conversation, that there was a great deal that I could learn from you. And in the last few years, we've gotten to know each other pretty well, mostly thanks to our dear friend Roger Lowe and his leadership group. And in that time, you've become a teacher and a friend, and I'm so proud to be able to present you with our 2016 Tzedek Award. It has a rainbow mezuzah from the Rosenthal Gallery, and it is inscribed with these words: for your lifelong dedication to LGBT equality and tikkun olam in the Jewish world and beyond, and for your teaching and wisdom that has brought so many people into a deep, genuine, and loving relationship with Israel. And it's inscribed at the bottom with these Hebrew words: Tzedek, Tzedek, Terdov, justice, justice shall you pursue.
Thank you so much.
So we want to give our next guest is my dear friend Ty Gregory, Deputy Director of A Wider Bridge, and my new friend Donna Waldman, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Free Clinic in Santa Rosa. Donna and Ty. Shalom. Hello.
Hey, buddy.
Okay. So we are all very excited to be honoring Roberta Kaplan today, and sad that she couldn't be here with us herself. Hold on. Da 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 da. You don't see anything. You don't see anything. Da 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 da. Community. 3 times. Yes. Can you guys hear me? Fantastic. Are you guys having a good time? All right. So yes, so we are excited to be honoring Roberta Kaplan. We're sad she can't be here with us today, but we have her dear friend Donna, who will accept the award on her behalf. And before you say something about Roberta, I want to ask Ty, because you had an opportunity to talk to someone well connected to Roberta recently.
Yeah, it's not every day that someone invites you to their apartment that's had an impact on millions of lives in this country, with tens of thousands of married couples now today. We went to the home of Edie Windsor. She invited me and our board member, Alan Kaplan, to her home. She made us coffee, and she's such a sweetheart. And I didn't want to touch anything in this apartment because there are so many awards on the piano, on the floor, on the shelves. I had to put my hands in my pockets. But in a moment, you'll see a clip that she has to say, and unfortunately, she couldn't make the flight. But she did tell a story that we're not going to show about how in 1967, she and her partner Thea were prepared to take in Israeli children in case of the worst during the Six-Day War. And that was something that stuck with her for her life. And in fact, she told us she's been a Zionist longer than she's been an out member of the LGBT community. And that's something I think most people didn't know, and that's something that she carries with her to this day. So let's watch Edie's tribute.
Let's do that.
A Wider Bridge will be presenting Roberta with their National Leadership Award in recognition of her truly outstanding work as an attorney fighting for LGBT rights, and also for her courage in standing up for a Wider Bridge when its program in Chicago was shut down by a protest that was both anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. First, I'd like to say something about my lack of presence here. I am unable to make the long flight cross-country. It breaks my heart to miss any opportunity to honor Roberta Kaplan. So I'm very grateful that you made this possible. It could be said that Robbie was born to be an extremely effective lawyer. Consider her promotion to partner at age 31 at Paul Weiss. That's unheard of, just unheard of. Okay. I'm sure she's the first and probably the last person for that to happen to. She had never appeared before the Supreme Court, but educated herself so that in the oral arguments in the Supreme Court of my case, she was informed, cool, calm, and brilliant. No one could believe that it was her first appearance there. I suspect that her own early experience as a closeted gay woman, okay, combined with her astute knowledge and love of the law made it easier. And she has a family that she adored. She has a wife and a son, and I'm sure that helps. I visit Robbie's office and I'm introduced to Team Edie, which became Team Windsor. This is a group of incredibly smart and funny and lovable young lawyers who were available to me at every difficult point in our almost 3 years of being together. And it never stopped. Her strategies were extremely clear in her head. Some came to her spontaneously, and some evolved from her experience. People who profited from our case often thanked me for my sacrifice. There was no sacrifice. It's been glorious, total joy. I live a love affair with the entire LGBT community. I get stopped on the street still, all the time. Okay, it's 4 years now, right? Or 3 years. And by kids who start to cry and who say, please wait, I'll pull myself together, I need to talk to you. And they tell me about how they were never able to go back home to their country because they couldn't see their mother who was sick until our case, okay? And I'm the hero, okay? And of course, what happens with this stuff is the plaintiff's name is on it. So Windsor is the hero. You know, you can't imagine the amount of joy. And I get by young people, by old people, all over the place, and it still goes on all the time. And I have said a number of times, if I had to survive Thea, I cannot think of a happier way to live my life. I am myself Jewish, although my parents, my mother in particular, were totally assimilated and not observant. I was told stories about injustices to Israel from the United States and Great Britain during and after World War II, and I never forgot them. I walked into Robbie's house not knowing anything about the event that had happened, and Robbie is showing me this letter, and she's already got all the signatures. I said, why am I not signing? And she said, you are, right now. I didn't even know about Wider Bridge. Now, I knew some of the things it has done, but I didn't know it was an organization with a name, okay, at all, until all of this. And I'm thrilled with it. I hope it stays strong, gets stronger. I hope it lives forever. Like I hope all Jews live forever. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to participate in the celebration of Robbie's award. It means a great deal to me.
So that was a very powerful statement from Edie herself. And Donna, you know Roberta well. Could you share a story about Roberta and the case, and maybe also any words that Roberta asked you to share to us today?
Yeah, well, Robbie really wished she could be here today, and I was honored that she asked me to come. There's so many stories. We befriended the family before the case, and so I had the honor to watch the process. The story that always stands out most in my mind was that Edie had looked to other attorneys before she got to Robbie. And one after the other, they said to her, it's just not the right time. And when Roberta sat down with Edie and the meeting was over, her answer was, it's always the right time for justice.
That's right, amen.
And that's
it. Yeah.
I can't say anything more.
I think those are very powerful words from Roberta, and we should go to a video to have her say more words of such great magnitude.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I want to thank the Wider Bridge so much for giving me this honor here today. There are very few things that matter more to me than my identity as a lesbian, my identity as a Jew, and my identity as a Zionist. So getting an award from an organization that promotes all three of those values together is incredibly meaningful to me, and I can't tell you how glad and happy and appreciative I am of this very, very great honor. The reason I'm not with you all, though, I think you all as Jews can understand, and as LGBT people can understand, which is our country now faces probably, I wouldn't even say probably, certainly the most momentous presidential election in United States history. So for that reason, while you'll be all having a great time in San Francisco, I will be back in my hometown of Cleveland campaigning to make sure, I hope, that our Constitution remains, our constitutional democracy remains, and that the future for us and for our kids remains the same, and remains, this country remains the kind of country we're all so proud to live in and to work to make better. I got very lucky a few years ago in 2009, and the reason I got so lucky is I got a call from a then 80-some-year-old lady, Jewish lady, by the name of Edie Windsor. And Edie, who has since become a beloved member of my own family, called to ask whether I would represent her in a case challenging the fact that when her spouse, her late spouse, Thea Spire, had passed away, Edie was treated as if she and Thea had never been married at all. And Edie had to pay a huge estate tax to the government because their marriage, which was valid in New York, the federal government treated as invalid or null and void because of this horrible law known as the Defense of Marriage Act. So I agreed immediately to take Edie on as a client. It turns out that there's a little bit of beshert going on here, because it turns out I had known Thea Spire, Edie's spouse, many years before, when I was struggling with my own coming out in my third year of law school. And so we together brought the case, and we won in the lower courts, and then we took the case all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And on June 26, 2013, the Supreme Court issued an opinion affirming that Edie Windsor was Thea Spire's spouse legally and in every other sense of the word, affirming that Edie would get all her money back, and most importantly, proclaiming that for purposes of the United States Constitution, the marriage that Edie and Thea had equal dignity to the marriages of anyone else in this country, and that essentially gay people in this country have the same equal dignity as everyone else. Those words, equal dignity or dignity, are repeated, I think it's 11 times in the Windsor opinion. And as a result of the Supreme Court and Justice Kennedy in particular proclaiming over and over again that gay people had equal dignity to everyone else, it was almost like a domino game. Judges throughout the country, in state after state after state, started issuing opinions saying that if gay people had equal dignity, then you couldn't deny them the equal dignity to marry. And so in places like Utah, Oklahoma, Virginia, courts started ruling over, Mississippi, courts started ruling over and over again that gay people should be allowed to marry. And that, of course, led to the enormous victory in the Obergefell case, 2 years from the exact date of Windsor, in which the Supreme Court said that there was a right of gay people to marry nationwide. Since that time, I have now brought 3 cases in the state of Mississippi. The first was the marriage case. Then we brought a case seeking the right for gay parents to be able to adopt their own children, which we won. And then the most recent case, which we also brought and won, was a challenge to a really horrific, hateful law known as HB 1523. And that is a law like some of the similar laws in Indiana, in North Carolina. And the whole point of the law was to basically say to people, you have a license to discriminate against gay people if you can somehow claim that you have a religious belief that gay people aren't the same as everyone else. And we had challenged that law. It was a little bit different than the other cases. We challenged that law under the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. We argued that the state of Mississippi was essentially creating state-sanctioned or an official state religious belief. And we as Jews know, for God's sake, that that is not something this Constitution permits, going all the way back to George Washington and the Jews in Rhode Island. And we won. And so that law never went into effect. The judge stopped it from going into effect, and it's now on appeal to the Fifth Circuit.
Now I'm not a lawyer, and a number that was lost on me, but I know that we are lucky to have a legal advocate like Roberta Kaplan defending us and defending our rights and helping us to live freely and equally in this great country of ours. And let's just give her another applause for that, for her great work. Now, Ty, I know that there's another reason why we wanted to honor her today. You want to say more about that?
Sure. I mean, we've talked about it already. But let's be honest. This was a very difficult day for our community. But, you know, and there were people in the room that were traumatized, that were shocked that this could happen to them. But let's also be frank that this was a watershed moment for 3 reasons in increasing importance. Number 1, I have to answer the question, what is a wider bridge, a lot less often. The amount of folks that understand what our work is increased tremendously. We gained a lot of visibility out of this, which was great for us to push this issue. Number 2, this is something that's been under the radar for a very long time. And our friends in New York have been grappling with this for a few years at the New York City LGBT Center, which we don't have time to get into, but that it has flared up in other places across the US, but nothing this dramatic. And so a lot of the folks who had no idea that this was happening in the Jewish community, in the LGBT community, in the pro-Israel community, saw in the raw for what this was. And the most important reason, and I'm going to ask that we put the quote up because I don't want to read it, but I want everyone to see it while I'm talking about it, was because of what Roberta did in the aftermath of this. She rallied elected officials, clergy, Jewish Christian clergy. She rallied members of the media, a diverse section, 80 LGBT leaders, to sign this letter saying that this is unacceptable in our community. This kind of anti-Semitism, this delegitimization of Israel goes against everything that we stand for in building an inclusive LGBT community. And the outpouring of support that Arthur mentioned was phenomenal. People wanted to learn about the work that we were doing. They did our work for us by reaching out to us. We had incredible meetings with a lot of LGBT organizations and influencers who were really curious after what had happened. What is this whole Wider Bridge thing about? What is this Israeli LGBT community all about? And I think that you can tell that we're in a different place today than we were.
Great. Now you can clap. Now we have Roberta again to tell more about why she wanted to write the letter. Let's show the video.
I heard from a friend and through news reports shortly after the incident happened that representatives of a Wider Bridge and Israelis had essentially been not only stopped from speaking, but threatened with violence and physically intimidated at the Creating Change conference this past year in Chicago. And in my view, that was the time to draw a line. That we needed to make it clear as an LGBT community that kind of hatred and censorship could not go on, and frankly, anti-Semitism could not go on, that it had to stop, and it had to stop then. And I know people have very different views on Israel. I'm sure the people in this very room have millions of different views on the state of Israel, but that's really not the issue. The issue is whether we allow people to share and discuss and to voice our views and to really discuss it. That's how this country makes progress. That's frankly how we made progress on LGBT rights. So it was that motivation, that sense that we needed to kind of draw a line and make it clear that conduct is unacceptable, that motivated me to write the letter with Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, who probably, she and I even have different views on Israel. But I'm so glad that we did that, and I think it was a bit of a wake-up call, and I hope that our movement can go forward with an ability to talk about these issues, to talk civilly about these issues, to disagree about these issues, but to still honor the First Amendment rights of all the people to say what they want to say. So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the eastern suburbs, in an area, frankly, not that different than places like the Upper West Side or Israel, really, in the sense that it really was a very Jewish area. Most of the people I knew were Jewish. I think Cleveland at that time, or that part of Cleveland, had the highest geographic Jewish concentration in the entire United States. And so from the time I literally was almost an infant, my friends and my family and my community made it very clear to me and how important to me the state of Israel was and is, not only historically and not only today, but into the future. That's a value I hope I've instilled in my own 10-year-old son who has visited Israel. And I can't imagine today the Jewish people being a people without the state of Israel. It's part of who I am and what I love and what matters to me as a human being. And Wider Bridge represents to me so many of my identities that matter so much to me as a human being, all in one organization. As a lesbian, as an observant Jew, and as someone who loves the state of Israel, Wider Bridge, in a lot of ways, as you know, personifies all those values and all those important core parts of my identity.
So I want to invite Arthur back on stage to present an award to Donna on Roberta's behalf.
Thank you.
Hi, Donna.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're here today to accept this award on Roberta's behalf. And we're presenting Roberta with our 2016 National Leadership Award. And what it says to her is that she is being honored for your heroic legal efforts in advancing marriage equality and protecting the rights of LGBT people across the United States, and for raising a strong voice against anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism at a crucial time for the LGBT community. And it's inscribed at the bottom with the Hebrew words, Ahava Menatzachot, which was the slogan that the Israeli community used in their fight for marriage equality, which in English means love wins.
Love wins. Thank you.
But wait, there's more. Ty, why are you still here?
That's a great question, Vincent. I thought I would talk a little bit about where Wider Bridge is going.
I would like, tell us, please.
When Chen and Imre were up here, Arthur hinted that we're continuing to find ways to build our partnership. And as you know, and a lot of the folks know, about 9 months ago, I moved to New York City to open our office in New York. So now we have an office in Chicago, New York City. And I'm excited to announce that we are currently working with the Aguda to hop the pond and ensure that we have someone on the ground in Tel Aviv.
Oh, great.
This is critical as a step for a couple reasons. Number one, when a Wider Bridge started doing missions, there weren't many opportunities for LGBT people, leaders, to travel to Israel. Today, there are birthright trips. There are gay travel companies that are taking people over things like Tel Aviv Pride. And we want to make sure that we have an ambassador on the ground to connect all those folks that are visiting with Israel's LGBT community so they can learn about the important work that organizations like the Aguda and the Israel Gay Youth and all the other organizations are doing on the ground there, and then reconnect them with us when they get back to the US to stay engaged with that effort. The other thing is they're 10 hours away from here, and they're thousands of miles. And unless we have someone there to sit around the table with them and understand what their needs are and how we across North America can help the fight for LGBT equality in Israel, there's always going to be that gap. And so by having someone there as a team member and working side by side with Chen, Imre, and the rest of the LGBT community, we can be much more effective in meeting those needs with our diaspora community here in the US.
Amazing.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about is a quick story. My boyfriend, Nathan, walks in the front door. He traveled here from New York. He owes a lot of credit, Nathan. He and Jerry are the secret sauce of the Wider Bridge. Where's Jerry Amato? They deserve a lot of credit with our travel schedules. And he walks in the door after having got off the plane, and I say, hey, I'm going to go to Nova Scotia next week.
Nova Scotia?
Nova Scotia. And I got a call an hour before from the director of the Atlantic Jewish Council in Halifax, Nova Scotia, saying that there was going to be a resolution next week to remove their booth from Halifax Pride on the basis that there was an Israeli flag at their booth at this Pride festival. Now, it doesn't matter what the outcome of this resolution is. This is already an affront on people who care about Israel and Jewish members of the community in Halifax. By the way, they have a community of 2,000 people in the Jewish community. They're a small minority. That sends the wrong message. And so this is a reminder to me, to the staff of Wider Brunch and everyone in this room, that creating change may be a large example of what's happening, but it's not just happening in big cities like San Francisco and Chicago. It's happening across North America, and we can't wait for these episodes to happen. We need to make sure that we're taking a proactive stance. And the way that we get there is by taking more trips to Israel and by doing more of these tours in the US. And right now we're doing 1 to 2 trips a year. And that's just not enough. We're running a trip in November, we're running a Pride trip in June, but we need to be doing more than that. We need to be taking specialty trips so that it can address specific needs. And I'm also excited to announce that next November, where's Rachel Waba? We're very excited to announce that next fall, Wider Brunch and Olivia Travel are partnering on a women's leadership mission for lesbian, bisexual, and transgender women to go to Israel. But we need to do more than that. We've taken 200 LGBT leaders. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And we need to be continuing to increase this so that these LGBT leaders, from Roberta Kaplan to you, Vincent Jones, are continuing to fight the good fight to promote LGBT equality in Israel and for Israel.
I love it. Sign me up. So, our co-host, at the beginning of the show, I forgot to say you have one more job. At all your tables, there is an envelope, and in the envelope there is a, I don't have on the cards, there's a card.
It's inside.
That's inside of it that shows you that gives you some examples of how you can support all of this work to happen. Because this work doesn't just happen with unicorns and fairy dust, although we wish that would be the case. It takes hard dollars to really make it real. And your donations really support the great work that's happened in the past several years and that Ty just talked about. So if you could all just make sure you give these envelopes to a volunteer who will be by the door. Volunteers, can you hold your hands? Can you see the lovely people in the back? They'll take it from you as you're leaving. And we want to thank you all for joining us today. Hope to see you next year at a Wider Brunch or one of the trips or one of the events. Thank you.
That's it. That's it. That's a wrap.
And we're done. Shalom.